Okay, it's 1:31 by my clock, so why don't we go ahead and get started. My name's Dan Prue. I'm the General Manager with the Greater Vernon Chamber of Commerce. I'll be moderating the town hall today. I'd like to recognize that we are I'm moderating this from the traditional unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan peoples. And very happy to welcome our guests today. We have Minister of Jobs and Innovation, Ravi Kahlon, as well as our MLA, Harwinder Sandhu. A little bit about these folks. Ravi Kahlon was elected as the MLA for Delta North in 2017 and re-elected in 2020. Ravi is the Minister of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation, and previously served as the Parliamentary Secretary for Sport and Multiculturalism. He is a two-time Olympian in field hockey, and prior to being elected MLA, Ravi spent 7 years in banking and another 6 years with the NDP caucus as Director of Stakeholder Relations. So welcome, Ravi. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Harwinder Sandhu was elected as MLA for Vernon Monashee in 2020. Prior to being elected, Harwinder was a registered nurse at Vernon Jubilee Hospital and worked as a patient care coordinator. An active member of the BC Nurses Union, she served as Provincial Chair, the Mosaic of Color Caucus, and as a lobby coordinator. As part of the BCNU and as an individual, she has worked on many charitable initiatives. So thank you both for your time today and being with us to answer questions from our members and concerns. Ravi, if you'd like, I'll let you have a couple minutes for your opening statements.
Great, thank you, Dan. Thank you to the Chamber for everyone that helped organize this. It's a real pleasure to be able to join you virtually, and I hope to be able to join you in person in the very, very near future. I am speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, the Tsawwassen and Musqueam nations. And first off, want to say how lovely it is to see my colleague Harwinder on the screen, and just want to say, you know, how amazing of a job she's doing as an MLA. Her advocacy for Vernon, every time her hand goes up, all of my colleagues kind of chuckle because we're like, she's going to tell us what she needs for her community. And you know, I think that's exactly what people voted for, and she's a strong voice on the ledge, and really appreciate her advocating that I be here today, and I just want to say hello to her. And it's lovely to see people logging on today. I'll start by saying that, you know, folks know the last few years have been extremely challenging, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, you know, not only did we have to deal with the pandemic, we also dealt with heat domes, floods, fires, and now a war, an unjust war on the people of Ukraine, waged by Putin. And all these things have impacts. All these things have impacted us and in our economy. And, you know, I think it's important to note, and I've said this before, I believe I said it to your members, Dan, that we're all in the same storm, but certainly all of us are in different boats. Everyone has faced these challenges and felt the impacts of them in different ways. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. But a goal for us was to take the learnings that from all these experiences and put a path forward for British Columbia. And that's what we've done with our Stronger BC economic plan. We've taken the lessons that we've learned and thought about how do we ensure that we can continue to be resilient in the face of all these pressures and future pressures that may come. And I think at the core of our economic plan, it's built for people and by the people of British Columbia. We know that our biggest competitive advantage that we have here is our people. I was just recently in the Bay Area and in Portland, and talking to tech companies that are looking to make massive expansions in British Columbia. And every jurisdiction, they talk about British Columbians and the talent that we have. And that is at the core principle of our economic plan. We've identified for us that we want to see inclusive and clean growth. Those are priorities, I think, of British Columbians, ensuring that those that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic actually see an opportunity to benefit and participate in the economic recovery of our province, and also to ensure that we're addressing our climate in the same time as seeing growth in our economy, and not something that we deal with after. And I think that's a very important point that is different with our economic plan that we've seen in the past, which is in the past we see inclusive and clean growth as more of a reactive measure, something that you deal with after the economy is done with it, and not something that you do in the beginning. And so that's what we've done, is we're reorienting what kind of growth we want to see, and see it in the beginning of our plans, as opposed to dealing with the outcomes of it as a government. Some of the key actions I want to highlight, and I know that we're going to have discussions about it. One of the things I was asked by a reporter recently, what keeps me up at night? And what keeps me up at night is that we have a report given to us about 6 months ago that laid out that we're expecting over 1 million new job openings in British Columbia over the next 10 years. And that a large portion of that is people retiring and deciding that work is not for them. And we've seen some of that where people weren't at the retirement age, but realized through the pandemic and all these things we've dealt with, which is life is short, and making decisions to step away from their companies or work. And so how do we ensure the next generation has the skills they need for the jobs of the future, but also our existing workforce? How do we ensure that they are more resilient to impacts, whether it's climate change related or whether it's related to technological change? So we're launching a future ready, kind of a skills of tomorrow training a blueprint, which will be launched later this year. We're working on that now, which will help us identify the skills challenges that we have in our economy. Of course, we've highlighted an Indigenous Economic Development Center, which is something that we're working on in partnership with First Nations communities, so we can capture the opportunities in the economic growth that we want to see for the province. Where we just launched a Mass Timber Action Plan, which I'm so excited about, which supports us to add more value to our forest products, but really addresses something that is critically important, which is embodied carbon in our built environment. How do we build our communities in a sustainable way? Well, we do it by using our natural advantage, which is our forest products, and use technology to allow us to do it faster. And lastly, last on my list for today is Agritech. We think we have huge opportunities in British Columbia. We've made some changes to allow Agritech to flourish, but I'm happy to talk about that if the question comes forward. I do want to acknowledge that it was a slight change to our ministry to include rural development now as part of something that our ministry takes on. Rolly Russell, who's the parliamentary secretary for rural development, is now joining our team, and will be doing a lot more work supporting smaller communities on their economic development initiatives. With that, I know that there's going to be a lot of questions from your members, and I just want to say I look forward to the exchange, the dialogue, and I want to say thank you, Dan and Richard and everyone for the invite today.
Thank you so much, Minister Kahlon, and again, we appreciate your attendance today to answer those questions and address those concerns. So we're getting right into some pre-prepared questions from the Chamber and our members, and I want to remind all the attendees that if you do have questions or concerns you want to ask, you can filter those right into the Q&A, and we'll get to them as we can. So you've already mentioned, Minister Kahlon, that there's going to be 1 million job openings over the next 10 years, but help-wanted signs are already a common theme with our businesses, and many residents still aren't working at the moment. So what can be done to motivate those individuals that are currently available to re-enter the workforce?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. And no doubt this is a major challenge now, and it's going to be, quite frankly, a challenge for the years ahead. The report I highlighted that highlighted over 1 million new job openings, that, normally governments have a challenge where they have more people and not enough jobs. But having a challenge of having more jobs and not enough people is still a major issue for the economy and for our province. So 3 main focuses for us. One will be and is childcare. Investments in childcare is, of course, about equity, because we know that predominantly women are the ones who take the responsibility and stay home for when there's childcare needs. But we also know now very clearly through the challenges we've been through is that it's about labor market participation. And by lowering the cost of childcare, it means more opportunities for people to enter the workforce to address the labor shortages we have. The other piece for us is skills training. It is vitally important. We've made historic investments through the pandemic, and we're going to need to continue to make them. And some of the forms of training is not the traditional 4 years, go through degrees and all that. It's micro-credentialing. It's giving people short courses to be able to take the employment opportunities. It's going to be working in partnership with private sector partners who want to be able to train people on the job. So we're really looking at this in a very flexible way. And lastly is immigration. You know, last year saw the largest net migration to British Columbia in 68 years. We had 100,000 people move to British Columbia. We had the highest amount of net migration, interprovincial migration, in over 30 years to British Columbia. So it means people are coming here, they see that there's opportunities here for employment, for better life, in some cases better weather, and all these things are helping us recruit the workforce that we need, and those are things we're focused on, but we're also going to need to have immigration from other countries. And I know the federal government just made some changes just recently, more of a short-term solution to allow more temporary workers to come. But I think it's important for all of us, in order to have a strong economy, strong communities, have social cohesion, that we look at immigration as an opportunity for people to come here, set up roots here, coach the local baseball team, coach the local hockey team. That's what builds strong communities, and that's what's going to be a focus for us in the years ahead. So those are kind of the three focuses that we're focused on, Dan, to address the challenges. But it's not in one sector. We're facing that pressure in every sector, and it's something that literally does keep me up at night. I wake up thinking, what are we going to do? training, and then my family's like, what's wrong with you? So it's something that's going to be important for us now and in the years ahead.
Thank you for that, Minister Kahlon. It is certainly the number one issue we hear about from our members is the labor shortage. So continuing on that theme, BC has one of the lowest unemployment rates in Canada, which you should congratulate the province on at the moment, but there continues to be this significant labor shortage. So where in your mind are you seeing the discrepancy between these great unemployment numbers and then all these help wanted signs that are still being put up? Well,
I would say that the unemployment numbers are a reflection of the help wanted signs. We're pretty much at the point where now the increase in labor market participation is the hard part, right? Like, childcare is going to be critically important, as I've highlighted, to be able to attract people who haven't been in the workforce. Those quick skills, the micro-credentialing is going to be vitally important. Providing stable housing for those that are the most challenged in our society is going to be vitally important, because the research is clear. I don't think there's a debate anymore, but the number one challenge for those that are homeless right now, the first thing you must do is find housing and create that stability, and then you can provide opportunities for skills training, building resumes, all those things that you need to get back into the workforce, and we're making those investments as well. But we're attracting people at record levels from other jurisdictions, which is a promising sign for us, because I can assure you my colleagues from other provinces are looking at our numbers with envy, but it comes with challenges too. When you have people coming, it means you need more housing. It means you need more childcare. It means you need more mental health supports. And one of the things we're seeing, certainly I know that Vernon is impacted, is more and more employers are realizing that working remotely is possible and can be just as effective, if not more effective. And so you're seeing a lot of young families moving out of Metro Vancouver into communities for different or better lifestyles. Vernon is a recipient of a lot of people, Prince George, Kelowna, Kamloops, the major centers are seeing it, but even small towns are starting to see it. And so with that comes additional challenges, but also it helps us as an economy because we get to see more distributed growth throughout the province. And so it's positive, but it comes with some additional challenges.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking about the participation rate, is there any significant data that shows how many people, stopped looking for work over the last 2 years, or maybe moved from full-time work to part-time, or perhaps how many people do work remotely now for an organization that might not be within their municipality or region?
Well, we do have data that comes out every month that gives us a sense of the shifts. It goes from increasing part-time to full-time. It moves every month, but we're at 104% pre-pandemic employment numbers. So 4% higher employment right now than we had prior to the pandemic. And that's private sector as well. The private sector has grown considerably since before the pandemic. And so those things are positive, but we still hear from employers saying, if I could hire 100 people today, I would. I heard from a tech company that said, if they could hire 2,000 more tech professionals in the next 3 years, they would. That is huge. And so what we're looking at now for a lot of these companies is say, okay, there's workers everywhere. Let's find opportunities. So how do we work closely with Indigenous communities to provide skills training opportunities closer to home so that they can participate in these growing sectors of our economy? How do we increase childcare so people can work odd hours and take up employment opportunities and not the traditional 9 to 5? And also, how do we attract workers from other jurisdictions to say, hey, we want to come to British Columbia and make this place our home? So these are all things that we're looking at. The data changes every month. And when we start collecting more race-based data, which we intend to start doing later this fall, we'll be able to get into more fine details of which communities may be where there's more opportunities. And I look forward to that data as well.
Thank you, Minister Kahlon. Question for you, MLA Sandhu. So during a recent survey of issues impacting local business, Chamber members identified street entrenched issues, such as drug use, crime, and vandalism. Do you support tougher penalties for those breaking the law while increasing access to treatment programs here in Vernon?
Thank you, Dan. I understand this issue, which is brought to my attention as well, and we have had this issue for quite some time now. And I strongly, firmly believe that people deserve to feel safe in their communities, and businesses should be able to operate free from harassment and vandalism. These are real issues in communities across BC and certainly in our community as well. And that Minister Mike Farnworth and Minister Eby are working with communities and police to address, as we also invest in more in treatment and mental health supports, which we've seen historic investments in our communities as well. I'm happy to hear input on what else may help in our community, and I will take it back to Victoria. While the elected representatives like Minister Mike Farnworth don't direct the operation of police, I know that the police in Vernon are doing hard to keep our streets safe for everyone. I'm not a lawyer, but I do trust the independent work of the BC Prosecution Service to apply the federal law that determines how to address those who commit acts of violence and other crimes. We're also investing, as I previously mentioned, heavily in affordable and supportive housing to help people stabilize their lives. Not only that, investments in mental health sector as well. Again, these investments are very important, and investments that we haven't seen historically. Our government is making historic investments to build a system of mental health and substance use care in communities across BC, and certainly our community also getting our fair share. And I'm advocating constantly so we get the services that we need. And we're focusing that no one should be deprived from these services. And some of the services, to be honest, didn't exist just 5 years ago. So we're working hard. In March, we announced the expansion of services at the Downtown Mental Health and Substance Use Center. So more people, particularly young people, can access substance use counseling, treatment, and mental health care in our community. Also, it's very important that historically, unfortunately, people tend to believe that politicians or lawmakers have to either pick economy or society or services, invest in services. We strongly believe, I certainly do, and our government, that we, in order to have thriving economies, and economy and healthy societies go hand in hand. In order to have thriving economies, we need healthy society where everybody gets the equal opportunities and the means to have routine and the dignity, so they feel encouraged to be productive human beings of society. So investing in society and taking care of economy to make sure that, and giving people the services like mental health and the other services where they need it, it's crucial. And our government is doing just that. And once again, I am always open to, if there are any ideas you want to email or send it to my office. It is my job to take it back to my counterparts. Thank you.
Dan, if I can just add to that question, I just had my first trade mission I was in the Bay Area talking to investors. I was in Portland and then Seattle. This very conversation is happening in every jurisdiction. The pandemic has exacerbated mental health issues. It has driven more people that perhaps because of sheer limits of numbers and shelters and others into deeper poverty. And so, this discussion is not unique to other parts of North America. All jurisdictions are struggling with this. We're going to have to heal as a community, as a province, as a country together, and it's going to take time. But as Harwinder highlighted, the new detox center, the housing units, all of this will play an important role in helping address this important issue.
Thank you to you both for answering that question. Another significant issue identified by members was the increase in inflation. So there have been labor-related costs such as the employer health tax, paid sick days, and increased wages that are placing inflationary pressures on employers. So what can be done to ease these pressures on employers and in turn consumers to reduce the risk of inflation?
Well, the truth is, Dan, that if we want to attract workers, the way you do it is by having wages where they think that they can actually come into the labor market and be able to survive by having the protections. I mean, we saw in the pandemic, one sick person coming into work shut complete operations down for weeks. And COVID is not gone. We're still there. And in fact, we're going to see COVID be around for a long time. And so I think it's a benefit for our employers to have the ability for a worker who's sick to be not feeling the pressure of a paycheck or work, and be able to stay home so that operations can continue to function. That has been that has helped BC be a leader in our economic recovery. We were able to keep a lot of our manufacturing open, our construction open, our major projects continue to operate. That was not the case in every other province. In fact, not in many other provinces. And so we want to find ways to protect workers, at the same time continue to have our businesses thrive as we come into the economic recovery phase. I will say that when we look to how it is that we're able to attract 100,000 workers are going, for a long time, Dan, there was a saying that capital is mobile, and capital is still mobile, but now labor is mobile. People can work in any jurisdiction and live in any jurisdiction that they want. We need to create environments where people actually want to come here and be part of our economy, continue to find ways to attract workers to come here. And these measures that we have put in place are to do that very thing. And, minimum wage, I mean, I don't know an employer that's paying minimum wage right now. It's hard to keep workers at minimum wage because there are so many opportunities. Like we have tech companies who are saying, we don't care if you have any skills. We'll teach you everything. We'll start you at $25 an hour. And so how do you compete with that? I think is going to be a challenge. I've highlighted a few of the things we're doing to address getting more people with the skills they need to get in. But the reality is we're going to see more automation come online as well. And so, we're starting to see some employers, those in hospitality now are saying we're going to have contactless receptions. People are going to come in, check into their room without, seeing or talking to anyone. And so we're seeing businesses starting to adapt. So there will be some of that happening in the economy as well.
Thank you. So speaking about attracting employees, can be difficult to do with the rise in the cost of housing and the housing supply that's available. So how can the provincial government work with municipalities to support attainable housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's $1 million question in every community that I have a chance to speak with. How do we build housing? How do we build it faster? And how do we ensure that when housing and density is approved, that there's some commitment to affordable units? That is the $1 million question that all jurisdictions are looking to challenge. I do chuckle with Harwinder because I look at her with envy. 660 units of affordable housing in the community is quite something. We don't have that in my community, and I'm working on it very hard. And that still doesn't even address the need. The need is much greater than that. But having housing built on reserve, which is traditionally the federal government space, but as a government, we just said we can't wait anymore. It's just not right for Indigenous communities to not have basic housing needs, and we've stepped into that space. But it's going to require a whole host of different things. It's going to require faster approvals from local governments. I don't know how long it takes for an approval in Vernon, but I can tell you in Metro Vancouver, there's some jurisdictions where developers are waiting 6-7 years to go through to get the density they need. I mean, who in their right mind would want to invest in jurisdictions that take that long to approve projects? And so partly that's a work we're doing right now through the Attorney General's office to work with municipalities on best practices so we can improve permit times to get housing online. Part of that is going to be communities needing to put on additional density. There's going to be a lot of work that's going to need to be done on supporting technology and innovation to not only build our buildings in a faster way, but more sustainable way. That's why I'm a big fan of mass timber. Not only does mass timber connect rural and urban communities by the nature of the product and where the end use will be, but it also allows us to build construction in a much faster way, in a more sustainable way. Last week, I was in Portland talking to at the International Mass Timber Conference, where we had leaders all over the world there. We presented on what we're doing in British Columbia. People were blown away at what we're doing. And it's not only because we're using public procurement to drive the demand so that the supply can come online to meet the growth that we want to see. But it's also because the core reason why this is a huge benefit for us is that we know with technology and innovation and a faster production cycle, we can actually build housing much faster going into the future. And we have companies that are designing complete buildings with digital twins, where they have engineers, they have the electricians, the plumbers walking through an entire building with AR/VR glasses on, identifying challenges before the building is even built. We have prefabricators that are building complete units and shipping them on site and putting them together like Lego. The construction game is changing. There's going to be wholesale change in the next 5 years. And so if you speed up the permit process, if you drive innovation in how we build units, that's how we're going to be able to build the housing that we need for the population growth that we see coming. And we're going to do it in a sustainable way. So we have a path forward, and we're working on that now.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add MLA Sandhu?
Yes, thank you, Dan. I would like to say, I'm also trying to read some chat and answered some directly. I now I realize I should have answered live and didn't want to distract people from what Minister was sharing. Lots of questions about the housing, temporary foreign worker, and the need for housing when we bring the immigrants over here. And again, I would like to highlight that our government is committed, and I, as your MLA, is committed to make sure that this need is addressed, and we made strides. Again, there's much more to do. Need is bigger than what we have. And just want to remind that I'm proud to share that we got 660 units so far, affordable housing, and not only to address the needs of one demographic of population in those housing, the ones who are following this closely, housing for individuals, families, people with disabilities, senior housing, even in Lumbee as well. Housing for senior, and first ever housing on reserve on OKIB land. And not only that, in Vernon, 100 units of housing, affordable housing, student housing at the Okanagan College. So those are some of the major steps that were taken, but I always say that this is not the end. It's not that that's all you get, Vernon. It's the constant attempts from the government that we're trying to address these challenges. And once again, working with the municipalities, and so far Minister Robinson, when she was a Minister of Housing, now she's a Finance Minister, and Minister David Eby as well. They've been pretty impressed with how City of Vernon and our BC Housing here, local stakeholders, be pretty organized, on par when it comes to deliver. So every time I thank them for these initiatives and remind them the need to do more, and they say Vernon is pretty amazing to work with, and it's much easier for government to deliver when everybody's on board and on the same page. So just want to reassure everybody that those initiatives are underway, and Minister Eby himself as well, during my conversation, he's always open to ideas. Any ideas you want to share, please feel free to send it to me. And the other thing about the immigration program, the pilot project, even last night at the Business After 5, when I was there, I got to meet some of the amazing individuals that Vernon, some of the businesses hired through the pilot project, which project is a federal program, but federal government didn't attach any money, so province funds it, which is expiring in December. And Minister Kahlon knows that during our caucus meeting, I've multiple times stood up and asked if our government can talk to federal government to ask the extension of that program, because it really helped us to meet the needs in the, whether it's skills trade sector or other areas of labor shortages. So these are the few things in the works. And somebody also shared in response to the conversation about increased crime, was Vernon Matters report. It's encouraging to see that, and I remember reading that previously, but I forgot to mention in my answer that crime rate has been lower, 12.9% from 6,148 calls to 5,354. Again, there is work that needs to do, and that's why I think it also speaks to lots that when people have stable housing, when people have the supports they need, they then go towards choosing the right path. It's just when people don't have their basic rights and no means of providing themselves, whether shelter, food, it's very easy to get sidetracked, and we're all human. And I just wanted to share that, and I think it's Lake Tide Media shared that link. And thank you once again for everybody joining and for these great questions. Any question, if it's not answered, feel free to email my office, and I'm always here to answer and to help in any way I can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, MLA Sandhu, and appreciate you bringing up the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot Program that's been able to bring immigrants into our community and fast track their permanent residency. That's currently a program that Community Futures runs and is a great asset for employers looking to fill the employment gap. Last I heard, it brought in, or they've accepted 180 applicants through that, with I believe 100 currently working in the community. So yeah, that's a great program, and we certainly hope it continues, and appreciate your advocacy on that to move it forward. Moving on to another question. So does BC have an Indigenous procurement policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now we don't have a policy dedicated just to Indigenous procurement, but through our major infrastructure projects, through our community benefit agreements, we actually have preferred procurement opportunities for Indigenous peoples. And so we have started embedding that in our major infrastructure projects throughout British Columbia. And we know there's more work to be done. We made some changes to our procurement policies. Procurement is one of those very challenging pieces of government that all governments try to navigate. But with trade agreements and what you can and how you can structure procurement, it's a very complicated process. But we have taken steps to ensure that local communities, that smaller contractors get opportunities, that Indigenous communities get access to projects. And in many cases, if they can't directly do that, or if they don't have a company directly involved in that business, for them to partner with somebody that is in that space to be able to take those contracts on. So we are moving aggressively in that space, and partly part of the work we're going to do with our economic development, this new center that we've committed to, and some of the work that we're engaging with First Nations leadership on, is these very questions. How do we support economic development with Indigenous communities? Because when Indigenous communities do well, everyone in the region does well, and the wealth doesn't go to Cayman Islands, to other jurisdictions. It stays in the community and it circulates in the community. So we want to see that advance. We want to see that grow, and that's some of the work we're engaging on right now.
And Dan, I would also like to, I've shared this link with somebody asked this question in a direct answer. So I would encourage everybody, they can go to government.bc, www.gov.bc.ca. And even if you look up the Indigenous procurement initiatives, there is that information that Minister shared, and there's more details, whether it's engagement with Indigenous partners and businesses, and then continued collaboration and engagement. So those areas, the work that's underway. So thank you. It's a great question.
Yeah, thank you to you both. We received a number of questions, all kind of around similar themes that we've kind of already touched on, such as affordable and attainable housing, as well as the labor shortage and encouraging people back into the labor market and bringing them here through immigration. I suppose to wrap this up, I'll give you each an opportunity if you'd like to have some closing statements and maybe speak a little bit more in regards to those issues. So we'll start with you, Minister Kahlon.
Sure. Well, no, I think I've shared some thoughts on the labor challenge, certainly. But what I'll just step back and say that what we've learned over the last 3 years is that there's no separation between what was considered social initiatives and what was considered economic initiatives. The two are now seen and understood to be very intertwined. And you can't have an economy that is strong if you don't have a workforce that has the skills that are needed to fill the labor market. If you don't have housing, affordable housing to be able to attract people to your community, mental health, connectivity, good access to healthcare. All those things are actually part of the economy and not a separation from. And I think that the conversations for far too long have actually created a separation between the two. And I think the pandemic and the fires and the flood and all these things have taught us that you can't escape it. It's all intertwined. We must move all these initiatives forward together in order to advance the economy in a good way. And certainly, I think somebody had commented in this section, when we look at, the million new jobs and the need for immigration, I think it's critically important that although temporary foreign workers are being used, I believe it's a short-term solution. It should not be a long-term solution, because it's in order to keep cohesion and our community strong, people need to know that people who are coming here are getting a chance to actually contribute to the community, help strengthen the fabric of our communities. And we know that, just a temporary program undermines that social cohesion in communities. And we're very sensitive to that. And we want to make sure that we come out strong, we stay strong. But when you have people coming, you need the housing. And so Harwinder is right to note that The reason why Vernon has had success to get so many units online is because of that collaboration. It doesn't happen in all jurisdictions, and having all levels of government, having the chamber, having not-for-profits coming to the table and say, let's work together, let's find solutions, is really the path forward. And we can't get housing on fast enough. We need to continue to push to do it in a faster way. And certainly that's something that we're focused on as a government.
Thank you. And Harwinder, would you like to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Dan. At the end, I think in conclusion, I would say I didn't have opening remarks. I wanted to give Minister most chance to engage with people, and I wanted to mention that I'm always honored and very grateful to be live, work, and play on the Indigenous territory of the Sioux people of Okanagan Indian Nations, and grateful for that. I want to thank Dan, you, Richard, all the organizers and members at the Greater Vernon Chamber, and everybody taking the time to join this virtual event. And I do look forward to have these in person, and Minister, you'll be thrilled to meet wonderful people in my community, and thank each and everyone for the work you're doing. Before I go, I just wanted to share the exciting news again coming from healthcare background. I know there are needs, and there is also what I've been reading and actually personally seeing the lab wait times, and I've been in touch with some of the local leaders sharing that the two labs are private, so you know it's what their staffing issues are. I can't speak to that, but the Interior Health Lab, they're actively hiring, and I know recently from Nelson and from other areas, lab techs are moving. Not only that, I would encourage everybody that Interior Health, they're providing 10,000 signing bonus. Again, government is always there to support, whether it's recruitment, retention bonuses for nurses and healthcare workers in Northern Health or here now for lab. And please share that opportunity far and wide. And yesterday, our government announced $12 million to support internationally educated nurses who are already here and highly qualified, whether they are from amazing countries, including US, England, Europe, India, Philippines, and they're highly trained, and there are so many barriers that they're facing. So the reason I'm sharing, I just want everybody, if you know somebody who can help us, again, it's addressing the need that what we're seeing right now and what we'll see in the future. Please share that. It'll help those nurses to navigate the needed courses so they can help us as well. And I'm quite excited about that. And anything else that, we're fully committed, sincere efforts are constantly being made behind the scenes. And I, as your representative, I'm truly grateful to have this opportunity to be your voice. And every day, every single day, I'm reminded of how grateful I am. And it is my job, and always open, as I say, not only to hear what's going well, what's not going well. Please feel free to reach out, and I'm all ears and boots on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Chamber, I'd like to thank the both of you, Minister Kahlon and MLA Sandhu, for your willingness to participate in today's town hall and hear from our members, answer the questions, address their concerns. Thank you to our members who attended today. The Chamber is proud to serve you and to advocate on your behalf to all levels of government. Hopefully, Minister Kahlon, we can see you out here in person sometime soon, fingers crossed. Yeah, there's some good months to come out to the Okanagan. So yeah, put it on the calendar. I'm sure MLA Sandhu could convince you one way or another.
Absolutely.
And with that said, I will let everybody get on with their day. Hope it's enjoyable. Take care until next time.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers.